Hello, this is Steve Shea. I wanted to talk a little bit about how to read an academic article. One of the amazing things is that during my entire undergraduate career, I never had anybody tell me about how to read an academic article. There was the standard stuff of look for the thesis and so forth. But nobody explained that the way that students are taught to write is significantly different than the way that academic articles and book chapters are organized. So I wanted to go through this with you a little bit, and I think at the end it'll make common sense, and you'll be better for it as you continue your academic career. Now, the way that we teach students to write is pretty much the same as the format that you were taught in fifth grade. Any long, significant piece of writing needs to have an introduction. And in that introduction, you're going to build the context of what you're writing about. You're going to have a topic, right? An area of content. And in that, you are going to have a thesis, which is your argument. This thesis is designed to be an argument that goes beyond just simple listing of a fact that is already known or a list of things. In fact, if you end up with a list in your introduction, what you should try to do is figure out how that list works together in your thesis. What do these 2 or 3 or 4 things tell you about the particular topic that you're covering? So, right, you guys already knew this. Once you establish your thesis with the last sentence of your introduction, you then go into the body of your work. These are made up by paragraphs. In general, you've been taught to write 5 paragraphs. There is no such requirement in this class, but each one of the paragraphs should have a topic sentence. That topic sentence should be a statement that can be factual, can be argumentative, but it needs to have supportive evidence behind it. And this is where the documents come from, statistics, materials that you read. That's going to be what do you want to say, the structure of your argument is built with these paragraphs that are in support of your thesis. Once again, nothing new here. And then your conclusion. I know a lot of times students are told, tell the reader what you just told them, but that can be kind of average. I think in general on your conclusion, you should try to put a twist or share why this is slightly unexpected, or a little bit different than what the general person might think of the topic. And in your conclusion, you should try to avoid boosterism in your conclusion. A lot of students want to complete their history papers with a grand statement about the totality of U.S. history, and this is why the United States developed into the greatest capitalistic society or the greatest democratic society in world history. That's all boosterism, because it's not what your paper was designed to do. Your paper is designed to cover a very discrete era, and what you have to say in your conclusion should relate to that era rather than developing beyond it. So, in general, I'm not sharing with you anything terribly different or new, but academics do not write this way when they write articles and when they write book chapters. And I want to be very clear about this because it causes a great deal of confusion with students. The way that academics are taught to write is the first thing you have to do is you have to make your particular story have significance to the readership. Most academics write about rather thin slices of history or pieces of knowledge in science. So in general, they start with the idea of a grabber. A story that creates relevance. Perhaps it is a moment of discovery, but it's something that's generated as excitement. Generally, the more personal, the better for these grabbers. Having established that there's something interesting here, they move on to prove that they are experts in their field. And so they go through a review of what other people have said about this topic. And this is a listing of names. It also has assertions that people make. And if you are a student that's been taught that the assertion comes at the beginning of the paper, because that's how you've been taught to write, frequently these assertions will sidetrack students and make them think that an argument that was made by another scholar is what is being argued in this article, and that's not the case. Part 3 for the academics is where we find the assertion, because academics are establishing that there is a gap in what we know about a particular topic, and they intend to fill that gap with their assertion. Now, as strange as it sounds, in some scientific papers, this knowledge gap and where the assertion is actually made sometimes will come halfway through the paper. My wife has told me that they've been as late as 2/3 of the way through the academic papers that she goes through. Historians are going to be generally a little bit earlier than that, but they could be as deep as 1/3 of the way through the article. So kind of be careful of that, and understand that the structure is a little bit different. Once we get past that knowledge gap, and once the academic makes their assertion, then we see the exact same things as we have seen before, right? The body with paragraphs that have topics of supportive sentences, and the conclusion. The only difference there is that sometimes there'll be a reference back to the grabber. In general, I don't have students write in this academic format because you're very constrained on how much time you have to write, or you have a page limit. If an article is 30 pages, you can spend time on the grabber and then reference it at the end. But for students in history classes, you're more like the Marines. Your job is to get in and get out. And so you start off with that introduction that creates a context, and then you move through the thesis, body, and conclusion. Well, I hope this is enlightening and helps you navigate academic articles a little bit easier in this class and in your future career.